Hey Susan, how you doing? I want to address this because I'm not sure you got what you needed to get out of my first response. The tutorials are great, but I think I have an idea where you're going with your question. So let me just go ahead and I wrote this up, all right? And let me just, I'm going to go to your illustration, which I have up, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So basically, when I illustrate, what I'll do is I will imagine where the light source is coming from. So in this, let me go to your illustration and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So what I would do is once you get the illustration set, you got to say, okay, now how can I make these more interesting in terms of adding depth, dimension, and volume by the depiction of shadow and highlight areas. So basically what I'll do is I'll say to myself when I'm illustrating, once I get the hard line down like this, the contour line, and add the color, I'll go like this. I'll look at the illustration. I'll say, all right, this is a timeline illustration, right? So presumably each of these, sorry about that. But as I was saying, each of these illustrations would have a consistent light source. So when I'm illustrating, I'll determine where that light source is. Okay, so let's say in my writing I said, let's assume that the light source is coming from the upper left in all of the illustrations. So here, here in this illustration, here, and this illustration here, and so on and so forth, right? So sometimes when I illustrate, I'll even draw a circle and place it where I want the light source to be, just so I know. So then at that point, let's use this illustration as an example. We'll use these illustrations as an example. So we know the light source is up here from the upper left, right? So what I would do at that point is I would say, okay, the light is shining down. Well, let's use this illustration. Light is shining down from this direction, meaning the highlights would be facing the light and the shadows would be away from the light, okay? So in this particular area, this would be the lighter side of the illustration, right? Let's zoom in here. And it just so happens that your highlight on the hair is actually depicting that. So this one seems to be backwards. So what I would do here is I would say, okay, so this is the highlight. On the face, this is going to be the lighter side of the face. So that means this is going to be the darker side of the face. So we can add a little shadow right there. Okay, just a little shadow right there. So you've got highlight right here in the hair, shadow over here. On this side, we would have highlight up here. And of course, this is depicted beautifully. So you've done a great job here. All right, now again, assuming the light source is up here, we would have a little shadow right there. Okay, little shadow right there. Okay, same thing, depicting that shadow in the hair. The light bulb would be a little different. The highlight would be over here. You'd have a little bit of a shadow area right over there, and so on and so forth. Taking a look at the knife, okay, consistent light source up here. Highlight would be right here. This side would depict a shadow, so you can add a little bit of a darker hue. Now, in illustration, a lot of times you want to add the depiction of shadow and highlight by changing the value of the parent hue in the object that you're adding the shadow and highlight to. So for example, the parent hue of the knife here, the knife blade, is this kind of gray color. So what I would do to depict the highlight is I would go into my color tools and I would just add a little bit of darker value to that hue. I wouldn't change the hue at all. I would just darken the value of that hue and I would add the shadow area right there. The highlight area right here on the curve of the blade, if the blade wasn't broken, I would lighten that value and I add a shadow highlight area right there. Let's take a look at the cake for another example. Okay, remember, light sources up here, right? So the candles, we would have, just take that blue, just add a little bit of a darker value, and there would be the shadow area right there. Okay, on each of the candles. Conversely, the cake and the plate, you would take a little bit of a dark area and just kind of add it right through here. Just a little bit darker, not to the point where it's going to make a big difference, not to the point where you got it right here. You've got that highlight right there. Okay, so the problem with this illustration here is that you've got conflicting light sources. Okay, so this particular cake right here is indicating a light source of up here. This cake right here is indicating a light source of up here. So these inconsistent light sources here the light sources depiction here points to inconsistency. Do you see what I'm saying? So what I would do right here is let's say the light source is up here. So you've got highlight right there. Got a little shadow area right there, which is great, but I would add further shadow area right through here. Right? Is it starting to make sense? Let's take one more example. Let's look at the floss box. Okay, so light source up here. We would have a little bit of a shadow area right here, right? And maybe a little highlight area right up through here. Although this probably wouldn't hold a highlight because the way that its perspective is it's tilted away a little bit, so the highlight would be depicted on the side. But nonetheless, you could add a little bit of highlight right there and definitely a little shadow right there. This whole side right here would be darker. If the light source is up here, it's not getting light. This whole side would be darker, right? Okay, so I think that's what you're getting at in your question. At least I hope so, because boy, I love answering student questions, and I just feel, I really bum out when I feel like I haven't answered the question. So in your response, I was like, darn it, okay, here we go again. Let me try this a different approach. So hopefully this makes sense. Let me know. Please let me know if this made any more sense. But again, take a look at those videos and you'll see, I think one of those videos, even the artist in the video even depicts a light source the same way I described, is drawing a circle and then working with the shadow and highlight areas if the light source moves. So if the light source moves, obviously the shadow and highlight areas would move as well, right? Okay, hope this helps, Susan. Please let me know. I'm really super interested to see if this answered the quandary that we're looking at here. Okay, thanks, Susan.